As soon as we came, the little turbulence we had in Niger Delta blossomed into militant activities with vandalization of oil pipelines and oil installations and oil infrastructure. Oil companies tried to close shop. They couldn't export at one point when the export terminal was affected. And drilling on oil stopped, so to say, in many of the companies at that time. And oil is the backbone of Nigerian economy. It's the mainstay of Nigerian economy. As a matter of fact, 95% of our earnings is from keep the jobs we have. So the oil companies were the hardest hit by the vandalization I mentioned earlier. So they decided that they have to lay off workers in the oil companies. They decided to lay off workers. The banks followed suit and said that most of their investment in oil and gas have been affected, so that the loans they gave out there have, in the majority, turned out to be bad loans now. And so banks joined suit and started laying off workers. So as Labor Minister, Labor and Employment Minister, the onus was on me to act fast. So I did the first thing, which is call an oil conference with the labor unions. And we agreed to work together. And we agreed that we have to save jobs. And we agreed that people in the high up, the pecs, for the people up, can be cut. We go and cut off. Some executive directors had about 6 cars. Some go on company-sponsored holidays 4 times in a year, every quarter. Some have earnings that are very big, gargantuan. So we reached that agreement. And we said, keep the people who are in the lower level and the middle level. Keep them. And the ILO conventions permits collective bargaining and social dialogue. We said to them, dialogue with the workers. Workers, don't ask for unnecessary allowances for travel to hazardous or swamp areas or whatever they call it in oil and gas engineering. Don't also ask for allowances that are frivolous. Don't even ask for promotions that are not necessary now. And they agreed. So we were then able to consolidate that area and make sure that the very few jobs that were going to be lost there, that they subject them to social dialogue and collective bargaining. Right. We went the same way into the banking industry. They didn't want to listen. And I told them that I have discussed at the highest level. If you continue laying people off without going back to the labor laws, which talks in section 20, how redundant some jobs saved in the banks. But it's not all bad picture or cry, cry, cry. The government says, we know we don't have the resources anymore. We know we did not save for the rainy day. The previous government didn't save. They didn't save even when oil was selling at 110 a barrel. So let us do what we can with the little we have. And so something must give. What did we do? We then decided that
deploy that towards addressing the situation.
Thank you very much, sir. This is a very good question. The government decided that for us to also fight unemployment, that we should diversify the economy. Minerals. No Nigerian state is bereft of mineral. Every state in Nigeria has one mineral or the other to mine. This is why some of us advocate that the issue of mining should be liberalized and removed from the exclusive federal legislative list, so that state governments can go into mining. But what we're now doing, because of the situation, is that we labor and employment. We are formalizing, we are helping to formalize farmers, miners into formal people, into cooperatives. We're encouraging them into cooperatives. As a matter of fact, in the 2017 budget, we have a plan, if approved, for us to go into every local government in Nigeria and create what we call a job center.
Of course, Minister, you must have heard it, that the take-home pay can't take anybody home anymore.
Take-home pay cannot take anybody home.
So, and beyond that, asking for a living wage,
yes,
we find that even the current levels of wages, workers cannot get, the arrears of their promotion, There's a question of training and retraining. And as we go on, we'll talk about this issue of workers being owed.
We'll put the same money into the economy. We'll put the same money. But we have to increase the capital vote so that government can spend more on infrastructure. And when you increase the infrastructural development, like roads, building new roads, new waterworks, new agricultural stations and stuff like that, it is the same government money that is going in there. And that money goes into the pockets of people. So if you come to the issue, you mentioned promotion, yes, arrears, and even the salary.
Yes.
President Buhari doesn't want anybody to be owed salary. There is an injunction on the federal pay of through the Minister of Finance and Budget and Planning that workers' salaries must be paid between the 25th and the 28th of every given month.
Minister,
the number of workers, okay, and things like that.
Okay, two issues about that, Minister. And it's that every administration that comes into office, and in fact, the civil service sometimes say, they're the whipping boys. Every administration that comes into office laments that almost all of its resources is going towards paying of salaries. But most of these administrations still function anyway with political office holders, being...
And thereafter, Obasanjo, 1999. So I have seen a lot of things. I can tell you that this regime, this government, is very worker-friendly, very labor-friendly. Very. I'm not saying that because I'm a labor minister. You can ask the labor leaders whenever they come here. I'm one of them. In fact, the executive don't know whether I'm working for the workers or I'm working for driver. It's not in our schedule. So many things have been removed. So it will be uncharitable for anybody to say that this administration in particular, an administration that have refused to retrench them, both in federal government and in the state level. We told governors not to retrench at the Economic Council. That's why they have not retrenched in states. They say they will retrench if we will not assist them. We give them bailout funds. Right. Bailout fund 1, bailout fund 2, then Paris Club fund. Which government has ever done that in Nigeria?
Well, Minister, but
this is it.
Despite all that, you still find that the states collected the bailout 1, 2, as you said, the Paris Club fund. We still find that states are still owing as much. I mean, eight months in some cases.
The workers' unions there
sometimes
should go and engage them seriously. Ask state governments to cut down. All these things I'm telling you we do in federal, a lot of state governments are not doing them. There are plenty of special advisors from outside the system. Special assistants, political assistants, and so many nomenclature jobs that have been created politically. I'm not saying that it's wrong, but you cut your coat according to your cloth. You can't rob Peter to pay Paul. The workers of Nigeria deserve to be paid their wages because a workman is due his wages. They must pay.
All right, Minister. Then there is this vexed issue of a minimum wage.
Yeah.
And discussions were supposed to have been held before now.
Yes.
as to determine, I mean, well, Labour, of course, has proposed 56,000 naira.
That's right.
What's your response?
Labour has a right to propose 56,000. It's within their rights. The present minimum wage is 18,000 naira. They say it's not enough. Everybody in Nigeria knows that 18,000 will not be enough for a worker. We know that. But is 56,000 the alternative? NECA, which is the Employers Consultative Assembly, has said we cannot pay that amount. Manufacturer Association says we cannot pay that amount. NASIMA, these are employers of labor. Because if you don't have an employer into this net for us to come and sit down and look at it, it is in this conference table that laborers, that's organized labor, their 56,000 demand per month will be tabled. And then MAN, NECA, NASIMA, federal and state governments will give a counter proposal and it will be discussed. Because one of the things you must know is that we should work according to laws and conventions. Nigeria is a signatory to the ILO convention, which I think Convention 103 or so, that talks about collective bargaining. And in collective bargaining, the tripartite partners must be involved. Who are the tripartite? Government on one side, Federation of Labor Unions on one side, and then the Employers Association. The various ones I've so mentioned, they'll be on the other side, and the discussion will take place. And again, in social dialogue, especially on the issue of wages, the ILO says no partner should intimidate the other. And everybody should take into account the sustainability of any wage you have agreed on and the means to pay.
Well, Minister, I like
So
the part you talked about that no one's group should intimidate the others. But
Yes.
it's a general belief that employers, particularly government, always intimidate the employee.
I don't know about this federal government. We have never asked the labor leaders whenever they come across you. But all I want to assure you is that we are working stringently to put in place this National Minimum Wage Committee this month of May. As a matter of fact, I left my office now, putting dots, T's, and I's to a memo I'm taking to council for council to approve the recommendations we made in the joint organized labor cum federal government committee. We have a joint committee, and that joint committee on Tuesday this week ratified the minimum wage committee and some palliatives which they think the federal government should be able to apply to cushion the effect of the increase in pump price of petroleum.
Now, there's also this little matter of a disparity in pay among government organizations, particularly in departments and agencies, where certain categories of workers
Yes.
earn 2 times, 3 times the pay of others from the same government establishments. I mean, from government establishments as well. And all attempts towards harmonizing this have failed. What is the problem here? You go, for instance, you go to certain institutions, you find that they're earning huge pays, while other government organizations...
I'm sure you're not including the central bank, because the central bank and affiliates are out of being a public service. You know that public service, or what we call MDAs, ministries, departments of government and agencies. They are right. It's their right. But I don't know about the one they call night allowances and stuff like that. Because when you are being given a letter of employment, the conditionalities for employing you are there. So if you accept and come in based on those conditionalities, if you want a change, you have to do it through tripartite negotiation. That's what I'm telling you. You do it and it's called collective bargaining agreement. You will engage your employers. So people in NTA, I read something, they have a right to engage the employers.
So can we say that the process has started already when media workers, I just used NTA as an example, but we have media workers generally, the process has started for them, for instance?
I don't know, because what I know is that they're supposed to start whatever it is locally. It is one they cannot reach an agreement locally that they approach us as Ministry of Labor and Employment, and we will invite both the employer and the employee and do what we call conciliation and ask them to further their collective bargaining agreement, and then put persons from us to be in charge of the no, not be in charge of the negotiation, participate in the negotiation. I think here we have a labor desk officer in information. So whenever it starts, our labor desk officer will join. But people should do what the law says. You negotiate it. And why I think they're having problems is that there is a clause that says that sustainability by the employer and the ability to pay should be the key underlying factors that will guide such negotiations. And I'm aware that a lot of the media houses have not even paid the little one that they promised to pay, and they are asking them to pay more. So do they now have the ability to pay? Can they now do sustainability? The sustainability clause, does it apply to them or not apply to them? You should answer.
Well, Minister, we will not dwell too much on that because there are still so many other issues for us to take up with. And of recent, there's been concern about an attempt to take out the issue of, back to the issue of minimum wage, to take that out of the exclusive list.
Yes.
What is it? Yes.
The labor people have raised it with me. They were frightened, and I allayed their fears. In the second schedule, torturous journey, which I don't think, because you will go to a public hearing, such an important matter, we'll go for public hearing, and they cannot skate through. I understand that what is happening is that somebody raised a bill as a private member's bill on that matter, and it passed first reading. When a bill comes for first reading, it's never attacked, because nobody is given right to talk. First reading is like listing for further discussion. So when it comes to second reading, the author, the proponent of the bill, the proponents will come with their reason and then put it up for debate.
All right.
And in the debate section, a vote will be taken whether to proceed on with it to third reading. And usually such obnoxious moves fail at second reading.
All right, Minister, how would you describe government labor relations under this administration?
I should be asking you that, because if you ask me, you're asking me to mark myself, or assess myself and my ministry.
Fair has been fair.
But for me, on my part, I know that the government has very good working relationship with labor. We have a good marriage, so to say. There is no divorce. What happened in Eagle Square was just a storm in the teacup. It's an agitation, and they have a right to agitate. And they have since come to my office and apologized that they couldn't control their members and that there was some infiltration by student organizations, civil societies organizations, and things like that. But I told him I don't mind. And it's allowed. It's part of the game. In fact, in some climb, they pelt their president or minister with tomatoes and oranges and stuff like that. So for me, we are good. We are very good.
All right.
There's no complaint they bring I don't attend to expeditiously, urgently.
When we started this conversation, you talked about collective bargaining, and this brings us to the next issue. Now, there are, some disagreements across board, and this has to do mainly with certain unions in the education sector, the health sector, and particularly in the oil workers sector. And this borders on collective bargaining agreements. We find that the agitation we're getting from those sectors are mainly as a result of the government going back on certain agreements that it had entered into.
Is it only government? Is government in the oil sector? Government is not in the oil sector.
No, I just use some of it, but you could see that in the, particularly in the health sector,
let me tell you,
medical workers, and in education.
Let me be honest with you. A lot of this, what do you call it now? This agreement over a previous agreement that has not been kept is as a result of what I told you. That when there's an intimidation, somebody can give in without an ability to fulfill that conditionality. If you're a medical doctor or a nurse, somebody will die. When you come back to resume your work, we can never go and bring back that dead person alive.
Well,
therefore, Section 43 of the law says that for any reason, a worker goes away from his job, the days you are away will not be paid for. Because even the Constitution in Section 17(3)(d) says it's equal work for equal pay.
All right, Minister, so if you
so this is it.
Right.
And if an employer, you're talking only about the workers, there are certain employers too who go and lock up their gates and leave their workers outside without notification. Without the law says for the period you lock that worker out without notice, you must pay.
All right.
Whenever he resumes.
So in the issue of payment, since we agree that a worker deserves his wages,
that's right.
Where the employer fails to do that, and the employer now turns around after perhaps the worker has exhausted all legal means to get his due, then the employer now turns around to issue the all-known threat of no work, no pay.
No, he cannot. We are there. That's why we are there. The workers will drag the employers and come. There have been many cases they drag them and come from oil companies, especially from Port Harcourt. I don't want to mention their names because it will not be good for them. But I know I've conciliated a lot where the companies have locked out the workers. They have turned around to lock them out. And I say, for this period, you must add their payments because they come to the gate every day and see it get locked. You must pay them for the period they were away and add it to whatever you were owing. And we tell them that you have to pay. If they don't pay, the law permits me as Minister of Labor and Employment to transmit such a case to the Industrial Arbitration Panel. I'll move it to the Industrial Arbitration Panel. The lawyer, the worker will not go to spend money doing payment to lawyers and looking for no. Industrial Arbitration Panel will give an award against such an establishment. And when that establishment does not pay that award, it's again transmitted collar job, blue collar jobs. That is why we have our NDE and our Empower program. Empower Build will come on steam this time for people who are not graduates, but people who can come and learn skill, bricklaying, POP laying, tile laying, carpentry, welding, and teach them, take them on courses, give them certificates. We are doing much. We are labor friendly, we are worker friendly, we are employer friendly. When the employers write me that they cannot access foreign exchange, I take it up with the CBA governor for the industries to be open. So we are doing for everybody, for the equanimity of our country, stability of the country.
Well, Dr. Chris Ngige, Minister of Labor and Employment.